Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the history of Gwynedd on the channel. We left off just after they were defeated at the Battle of Chester and Fadfan ap Iago's death, and as well as his inscription on his memorial tombstone in Gwynedd in 625. Because we are looking at the kingdom rather than anyone or event in specific detail, I'm able to go over a lot more per video about the kingdom itself, which does mean it takes me a bit longer because there's a lot to translate in my little Essex native tongue. But back to Gwynedd. Among the most powerful of the early kings was Cyfnewid ap Cadfan, grandson of Lab Gotbeli. He became engaged in an initial disastrous campaign against Northumbria, where following a series of epic defeats he was confined first to Anglesey, then just to Puffin Island, before being forced into exile across the Irish Sea to Dublin, a place which would come to host many royal refugees from Gwynedd. All must have seemed lost, but Cyfnewid raised an enormous army, and after a brief time in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, he then invaded Damonia, relieved the West Welsh who were suffering a Mercian invasion, and forced the pagan Penda of Mercia into an alliance against Northumbria. With new vigour, Cyfnewid returned to his Northumbrian foes, defeated their armies, and slew a series of their kings. In this furious campaign, his armies devastated Northumbria, captured and sacked York in 633, and briefly controlled the kingdom. At this time, according to Bede, many Northumbrians were slaughtered with savage cruelty by Cyfnewid. He wrote in his work, The Ecclesiastical History of the English People, and I quote, "He neither spared the female sex nor the innocent age of children, but with savage cruelty put them to tormenting deaths, ravaging all their country for a time, and resolving to cut off all the race of the English within the borders of Britain." Charming guy though, right? Despite the war, the 14 battles undertaken by the allied forces of both Gwynedd and Mercia against Northumbria, of which the chief battle is Fendergosh in 632, an alliance was concluded when Cyfnewid married Acrifa, daughter of Wibar of Mercia. However, the effect of these tumultuous events would come to be short-lived, for he died in battle in 634 close to Hadrian's Wall at the Battle of Heavenfield. On account of these deeds, he and his son Fwawladr appear to have been considered the last two High Kings of Britain. Fwawladr presided over a period of consolidation and devoted much of his time to the church, earning the title Bendigdied, the Welsh word for blessed. As a monk in later life, he was involved in Clenog's Abbey and St Fwawladr's Church in Fwawladr on Anglesey. He became a mythical redeemer figure in Welsh culture and a prominent character in the romantic stories of Geoffrey of Monmouth, where he is portrayed as the last in an ancient line to hold the title King of Britain. In Geoffrey's account, he doesn't die of the plague. He renounces his throne in 688 to become a pilgrim in response to prophecy that his sacrifice of personal power will bring about a future victory of the Britons over the Anglo-Saxons. Geoffrey's story of Fwawladr's prophecy and trip to Rome is believed to be an embellishment of the events in the life of Ceadwalla of Wessex, whom Geoffrey mistakenly conflated with Fwawladr. Ceadwalla renounced his throne and travelled to Rome in 688. For later Welsh commentators, the myth provided a messianic hope for the future deliverance of Britain from the dominion of the Saxons. It was also used by the Yorkist and Lancastrian factions during the War of the Roses to claim that their candidate would fulfil the prophecy by restoring the authentic lineage stemming from Fwawladr. The Tudors of Fenennydd and Henry VII of England in particular claimed descent from Fwawladr in the 22nd degree, and it was Harry Tudor who raised his red dragon banner at the Battle of Bosworth Field. During the later 9th and 10th centuries, the coastal areas of Gwynedd, particularly Anglesey, were coming under increasing attack by the Vikings. These raids no doubt had a seriously debilitating effect on the country, but fortunately for Gwynedd, the victims of the Vikings were not confined just to Wales. The House of Gwynedd, as the direct descendants of Gwynedd are known, eventually expired in the male line in 825 upon the death of Pwyll ap Rhodri Morwennog, and as Welsh historian John Edward Lloyd put it, a stranger came to possess the throne of Gwynedd. This stranger who became the next king of Gwynedd, was Mervyn Freach, or Mervyn the Freckled. When, however, Mervyn's pedigree is examined, and to the Welsh, pedigree and descent meant everything back then, he wasn't a stranger, but a direct descendant of the ancient ruling line. He was the son of Gwynedd, the king of the Isle of Man, and, depending on the source, either the son or husband of Shisht, daughter of Fernandin Dairoy, a former king of Gwynedd. The most ancient genealogical sources agree that Mervyn was the son of Shisht, heiress and cousin of Hwyl ap Caradog, last of the ruling house of Canada in Gwynedd, and that Mervyn's male line went back to Henogliv, or the Old North, to Farahen, a first cousin of Tian, making him a direct descendant of Wilhen. So the House of Canada and the new House of Aberfra, as Mervyn's descendants came to be known, they shared Wilhen as a common ancestor. So the House of Canada traced the line through Gwawl, his daughter and wife of Canada. Mervyn married Nesfer Carvesh, the sister of Fanin ap Carvesh, the king of Poys, and founded the House of Aberfra, named after his principal court on Anglesey. No written records are preserved from the Britons of southern Scotland or northern England, and it's very likely that the Mervyn Freach brought many of these legends as well as his pedigree with him when he came to North Wales. It's also most likely that it was at Mervyn's court that all the lore of the North was collected and written down during the reign of that of his son. It's from this point we get to move on to one of the biggest names in the Kingdom of Gwyned's history, Rhodri the Great. He was the son of Mervyn and his wife Nistfar Carvesh. Rhodri was able to add Poys to his realm after its king, his maternal uncle, had died on a pilgrimage to Rome in 855. Later, he married Carad Virmeirig, the sister of King Gwan of Vaesursog. When Gwan died without heir in 872, Rhodri became a steward over the kingdom and was able to install his son, Carvish ap Rhodri, as a subject king, making him become the first ruler since the days of Canada to control the greater part of Wales. Little bit suspect, if you ask me, that he managed to just simply walk into all these roles. Then I do love a bit of court drama and intrigue. When Rhodri died in 878, the relative unity of Wales ended when it was once again divided into its component parts, each ruled by one of his sons. Rhodri's eldest, Narad ap Rhodri, inherited Gwynedd and would firmly establish the princely house of Aberfra that would come to rule Gwynedd, with a few interruptions until 1283. From the successes of Rhodri and the seniority of Narad, among his sons the Aberfra family claimed leadership over all other Welsh lords, including the powerful kings of Poys and Deheubarth. In the history of Gruffydd ap Cynan, written in the late 12th century, the family asserted its rights as the senior line of descendants from Rhodri the Great, who had conquered most of Wales during his lifetime. Gruffydd ap Cynan's biography was first written in Latin and intended for a wider audience outside Wales. The significance of this claim was that the Aberfra family owed nothing to the English king for its position in Wales, and that they held authority in Wales by absolute right through descent. The House of Aberfra was displaced in 942 by Hwyl Da, a king of Deheubarth from a junior line of descent from Rhodri Mor. This occurred because Hwylfio, the king of Gwynedd at the time, was determined to cast off English overlordship and took up arms against the new English king Edmund I. Hwyl and his brother Eliseth were both killed in battle against Edmund's forces. By normal custom, Hwyl's crown should have been passed to his sons, Eef and Iago Abi Dwell, but Hwyl Da intervened and sent Iago and Eef into exile over in Ireland and established himself as a ruler over Gwynedd until his death in 950, when the House of Aberfra was restored. Nonetheless, though, the surviving manuscript of Vifrith Hywel recognised the importance of the Lords of Aberfra as overlords of Wales, along with the rulers of Deheubarth. Between 986 and 1081, the throne of Gwynedd was often in contention with the rightful kings frequently displaced by rivals, within and outside of the realm. One of these, Gruffydd ap Llywelyn, originally from Poys, displaced the Aberfra line from Gwynedd, making himself ruler there, and by 1055 was able to make himself king of most of Wales. He became powerful enough to present a real menace to England and annex some neighbouring parts after several victories over English armies. Eventually he was defeated by Harold Godwinson in 1063 and later killed by his own men in a deal to secure peace with England. Blevin ap Kenvin and his brother Rafshan of the Matharval dynasty of Powys, Gruffydd's maternal half-brothers, also came to terms with Harold and took over the rule of Gwynedd and Powys. This all happened shortly after the Norman conquest of England in 1066. The Normans began to exert pressure on the eastern border of Gwynedd. They were helped by internal strife following the killing of Blevin ap Kenvin in 1075 by his second cousin, Rhys ap Arwain, king of the Heibwrdd. Another relative of Blevin's was Teharan ap Caradog, who seized the throne but was soon challenged by Gruffydd ap Cynan, the exiled grandson of Iago Abi Dwel ap Meirig, who had been living in the Norse Gael stronghold in Dublin. In 1081, Teharan was killed by Gruffydd in battle, and the ancient line of Roderick More was restored. And that brings us to the end of part 2. I'm really sorry it took a while to get here. It took a lot of research and lots of translating. As always, I do my best with saying names and places the way they're intended, but my native language is English, and with an Essex dialect at that, so I am by no means a professional when it comes to accents or speaking other languages. This aspect of the video, as well as the research needed, is the most time consuming parts of my videos, so I hope you enjoy all the efforts that are put into them. Thank you for watching the video, and please don't forget to share, like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye!